Hey everybody, it's me, Mark. It says that we're live. Are we live? Presumably, we're going live. Everybody, welcome to the live stream book signing for Gray Man. Hopefully, this wasn't too complicated or confusing in terms of figuring out how to log on or connect. Is it not playing?
There it is.
Oh, okay. So we're good.
Yep.
But yeah, so usually, I don't know if this is the case for you guys. If ever I'm trying to get on Zoom or something, it always takes me a minute or two to figure out how to connect to something. So we'll just give a few minutes for folks to get here, and I'm just going to ramble for a bit while folks are connecting. So yeah, so thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully this will be fun. Hopefully this won't be humiliating or or awful. But I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So this is for Gray Man, which is a book that I wrote over the last 4 or 5 years or so, and it's going to be coming out next May. And a couple months ago, I started posting on Facebook that this was coming out, and I started getting some messages from a couple friends of mine asking, "Hey, can I get my copy signed?" And I would just write back like, "Yeah, sure," and didn't like think about it. I just figured, yeah, I'll probably see that person at some point and sign it, and I didn't even think about it. But then after I started getting more than like 5 of those messages, I started thinking, okay, I should probably or come up with a way to do this and try to organize it. So today we are going to do I'm going to sign copies of the book, and they're going to go out in the mail. So Gray Man doesn't come out until May 17th. It doesn't come out until next month. Bookstores are not allowed to sell it until May 17th. Amazon is not allowed to sell it until May 17th, but we've got a bunch of them early. Isn't that special? So if you filled out a Google form over the last 2 or 3 weeks, then your book is here somewhere. And we've got all the books have these little tags on them that has your name, who it's going to, who it's supposed to be signed to. So that's been done for all of these. So they're all organized, and hopefully it'll all be right, and it'll be exactly the way you filled it out on the form. Exactly. With 0 mistakes. Also, Whitney is here. She's going to help me keep everything organized. She doesn't want to be on camera, but she says hello.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. So today we're gonna sign books, and then they're gonna go out in the mail on Monday. They're gonna go out media mail, so it's gonna take probably about 4 or 5 business days for you to get them, but you will get them. If you want a tracking number, just let me know. You can shoot me a message on Facebook or email me. I mean, you guys are all friends of mine, so you know how to get in touch with me. But let me know if you want a tracking number. I'm sure we can get it to you. I'm obsessive about tracking numbers. I'm psychotic, so I always want to be like, when is it getting here? So if you want it, it's totally fine. Just let me know, and we'll get that to you. Okay, so I guess I should talk a little bit about the book.
There is a question about the Gray Man legend as well.
Okay, good. Well, that's perfect, because that was what I was going to talk about. So I'll talk. I guess I should talk a little bit about the book, like what the book is about, and why a Presbyterian pastor randomly wrote a ghost story. This is not. I guess this isn't really the kind of book that a lot of Presbyterian pastors write. Most of us write books about theology and things like that. Not me. I did something like this because I just had to be different. So the Gray Man is just like the comment said. It's a legend from Pawleys Island, South Carolina, which is not too far from where I grew up. I live in Ohio now, but I'm from South Carolina originally. And the Gray Man is one of several very famous local ghost stories that originate in the Carolinas. South Carolina has a lot of very rich folklore, like the Gray Man, Alice Flagg, the Crab Boy, Boo Hag. Yeah, that's one of them. The Headless Sentry of Wedgefield Plantation. There's a lot of like really famous ghost stories, and this story was something that I first had the idea for something kind of like this back about 20 years ago, actually. This idea goes back a long time. When I was in high school, I wanted to write a story about the gray man. There are a lot of books that have been written about South Carolina folklore. In fact, I think I have some of them here. If you've been to like any of the beaches, if you've been to like Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head, you've probably seen books like this. This is More Tales of the South Carolina Low Country. This is by Nancy Ryan. I'm plugging her book. but there's a lot of books that have been written about like local folklore, right? And where you can read about what the legends are and all that. But there hasn't been a whole lot of like literary fiction about these stories. And I've always thought that was kind of weird. I've always thought that was kind of strange because these stories are so rich and so interesting and so compelling. Like I grew up hearing stories about the gray man, and many of you from South Carolina, from Sumter, probably grew up hearing that story too. And these are some of my favorite stories. Like I loved The Legend of the Gray Man, and I loved all of these sort of folk tales. And I've always found it kind of odd that there hasn't been more literary fiction about it, because I just always assumed that it was like right for that, because the stories are so rich and so interesting and so layered. And so when I was 17, I was like, well, I'm gonna do it. And I attempted to write a piece of literary. I actually tried to write it as a stage play in high school, and I set it in the present day on Pawleys Island and it was going to be just literary fiction about people living their lives who encounter the gray man. I thought this would be a brilliant idea. The play was terrible. It was really, really bad. They did a staged reading of it at the Sumter Opera House in Sumter, South Carolina. And everybody was very, very polite about it, but it was awful. It was really, really bad. But that idea has been like in the back of my mind for a long time. I've always thought like someone should do a literary fiction story about the gray man. And every couple of years I would think about it a little bit. And in seminary, I briefly tried again to come up with an idea, but it just could never figure out a way to do it. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I had an idea for a story kind of like that. Is actually what became this story. And I thought, well, I'll just start writing it for fun. I mean, probably no one's ever going to see it, but, and I kept working on it. I kept tootling with it. And after a while, I kind of thought, I kind of like this. I think that, maybe I should show it to people. And but anyway, eventually I started showing it to some friends of mine and eventually some professional editors. And it now has become a book called Gray Man. So that's a little bit about the book. The story is about a young man named Liam, who's about 24 years old. He lives on Pawleys Island in the present day. And about 6 months prior to the start of the story, his mom dies very suddenly and very unexpectedly and very tragically from a stroke. And so he is sort of kind of drifting through life. He's living his life on Pawleys Island, but he's kind of alone. He doesn't have a lot of family nearby. We kind of learn through his story there's some estrangement in his family. So he's kind of an invisible man in the story. He's got a couple friends. He's got a friend named Aubrey who's hanging around, and then her mom is a woman named Janet who lives with dialysis. So the story kind of is set during that season of grief for him during the summer on Pawleys Island, which is hurricane season. And so as we follow Liam and Aubrey, and Belzy's making a little cameo here, as we follow them sort of through their lives as this hurricane is getting closer, some strange things start to happen. So the gray man is a ghost who appears. If you're from South Carolina, the gray man is a ghost who appears on Pawleys Island, usually right before a hurricane hits. Mm-hmm. That's the legend. So the legend is if you see him, that's a warning that a storm is coming and you should get away as quickly as possible. And if you heed his warning, he'll protect your home while you're away. So we'll see if the characters in the story do that or not. So, okay, so that's a little bit about the story. If you guys have any more questions about it, feel free to throw any comments in there. I do want to take some time to thank a couple of people, because this book was a lot of fun to write, and this was an enormous joy to get to work on. But I really want to thank a couple of critique partners. These are dear, dear, dear friends of mine who, for really a couple of years now, very patiently and very politely, like, read parts of the story and gave me feedback, helped me edit it, listened to me ramble about the Gray Man for God knows how many hours. But I really want to thank Chrissy Westbury, who is one of those critique partners. Carol Clark, who's a dear, dear friend of mine from the Presbytery of Arkansas. She was a very, very early supporter of this idea. Sam Liberty. Sam and I have been friends going all the way back to college. Sam is a great editor. He's a really, really wonderful editor. And Carla Damron. I should talk a little bit more about Carla later. Carla is another dear friend of mine who actually wrote the blurb on the back of the book. Carla is a very, very accomplished and award-winning novelist in South Carolina. She wrote, actually, I've got her book over here. She wrote an award-winning book a couple years ago called The Stone Necklace, which is really, really wonderful. And she's also written a bunch of crime fiction, which is really very fun. But Carla's mom is Katie Damron, and Katie Damron was my theater teacher. She, as many of you know, she was the executive director of the Sumter Little Theater for decades in Sumter, South Carolina. And the book is actually dedicated to Katie. Katie was there at the Sumter Opera House when they did the reading of the first version of this, the one that was really bad. But Katie was a wonderful influence on my life and on the lives of countless other students. And she was a big reason why people like me got interested in the creative arts in the first place. And so the book is dedicated to her, and also dedicated to teachers who work with young people to help them find their way. So it was wonderful that her daughter was nice enough to have a part in putting together this version of the story, this book, and to write a really nice little blurb for it. So thank you to Carla, thank you to Chrissy, thank you to Carol, thanks Sam, as always. I also want to thank a guy named Clifton Mcdaniel. Clifton Mcdaniel is mentioned in the book. He is, when I was working on the story, I got a chance to talk to a couple of people who claim that they've seen the Gray Man, like for real. And Clifton was one of them. And Clifton is a young man. He's like a social media influencer now. He has a podcast about whiskey and a YouTube channel, and it's very, very successful. But he had a very, very cool and spooky Gray Man story of his own, and he was nice enough to let me interview him back probably about 4 years ago now. And there's a scene at the very, very towards the beginning of the story, I don't want to give too much away, that's very, very, very heavily inspired by his real life story. And a lot of the details about the way the ghost is described in the story were drawn from details that he shared with me in our conversations together. So that was sort of my attempt to try to make the story realistic and authentic and credible. So thank you to Clifton. Clifton was nice enough to let me use a lot of details from his story in this one, and so that was very nice of him. And I also want to thank the folks at Palmetto Publishing Group who put the book together. I want to thank Nicole Jock, who was the publishing consultant on Gray Man. Stephanie Stopalski. Stephanie, I think just recently left Palmetto Publishing. So congratulations, Stephanie. I know that they miss you over there. Stephanie was, my God, she was the project manager on Gray Man, and she just was an MVP. She was wonderful at managing my anxiety towards the end when I started getting crazy and ridiculous. And she really made sure that that this book came out looking really, really nice. And it really does look wonderful. Their team did the cover. There's a number of, I'll show you guys, take a little sneaky peek. There's a number of black and white images in the book of Polly's Island that sort of weave in and out of the story. And their design team just helped put that all together. And it looks really, really nice. And it looks beautiful. So I want to thank Stephanie Stopalski. I also want to thank the editors. I think this went through 3 rounds of editing at Palmetto Publishing. And there was an editor, I think her name was Alexandra Lapointe. I may be butchering her last name. But anyways, they were all wonderful. Their team was just fantastic. So thank you to Palmetto Publishing for putting this together and making it look pretty. Okay. I feel like I've talked for like half an hour. Should I sign?
Let's sign some books.
Okay. All right. So we've got these all organized here. So I'm just gonna sign. I can't possibly imagine that this is gonna be entertaining for you just watching me scribble. But okay. Oh, so this one, this is for Elizabeth Gabbard. Elizabeth and I went to seminary together. So shout out to Elizabeth and Sarah Lear. We've been friends and colleagues for forever. And she's a dear friend, as is Sarah Lear. For Elizabeth. Okey-doke.
Clifton commented.
Oh, hey, Clifton. Hey, good to see you. Clifton, we were just talking about you. Did he? I don't know if
He said, finished reading the story in this past weekend. Couldn't put it down. It's a great story.
Oh, Clifton, that's very nice. That's so good. Well, Clifton, again, thank you so much for your contributions to it. Thank you so much for letting me use some details from your story. And Clifton's a really cool guy, and his YouTube channel is really good. And I need to look up.
He has his post. That's what he's posting under Bourbon Bites.
Bourbon Bites. That's it. So yeah, check out Clifton's YouTube channel. He's a great guy, really nice dude, and yeah, really enjoyed that. Cool. Great to hear from you, man. This is for Jared. Jared Waterworth. Jared, you tell me Jared left a comment.
He asked a question.
Okay. What was Jared's question?
My question, though I can't attend. How did George Lucas influence Gray Man?
Heavily. I have a really funny story about George Lucas. I'm not going to get into it here, but
you know what? It might be appropriate.
Well, that's yeah. So Jared and I went to Emerson College together years and years ago, and during a trip to New York, I physically accosted George Lucas. I saw him out on the street outside of his car at outside of the Broadway production of Wicked, and I grabbed him for a selfie. There's a much longer and more entertaining version of the story. I can't get into all of it now, but yeah. So the impact on later creative endeavors was profound. Okay.
Laura Stockbridge, has his restraining order terminated yet?
My lawyer has advised me not to discuss that on the live stream. So, okay. So this is this is two hardcovers. I'm going to come back to this is for Amy, but I'm going to have to come back to that because I got to find the other one when we get to it. So that's fine. Okay. Oh, this is for Jasmine. So Jasmine Clark. Hey, Jasmine. I don't know if you're watching this. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this from the future, readings from the past. I hope the future is better than the present. Jasmine and I lived in the LB, the little building at Emerson College, during our freshman year. And so she would listen to me babble about the Gray Man quite a lot 20 years ago when the play was, when I was writing that hot garbage. Jasmine's a dear friend of mine. We've been friends for many years, and she's also very funny on Facebook and social media. So that's for Jasmine. Lovely.
There is a question about the story, if you want to.
Oh, okay. What's the question? I'm trying to keep a look at the comments, but
that's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Matt Hartley says, was writing the book fairly sequential, or did you figure things out of order to some degree?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thanks. Hey, Matt. Matt and I are also ministry friends, and Matt's one of my dear friends, and we love to tease each other endlessly on each other's Facebook page.
This is fairly professional. It says, did you know the ending before the other thing?
Yes. So the ending. Okay. So did I write it sequentially? No, I didn't. So the book is written from the point of view of different characters, and we kind of switch between different characters' point of view throughout the story. And it's loosely based on the structure of the play. Although the play that I wrote when I was like 17 was a hot mess. I mean, it was really, really bad. So none of the story or the characters from that are in this. But there were certain, like, how do I want to say this? Certain ideas that 17-year-old Mark had for that story that I liked. He just didn't know how to do it really well. So I kind of knew the overall idea of what the story was going to be, who the characters were going to be, and where it was going to go. I did know the ending. The ending is very, very similar to the ending in the play, but there were a lot of like plot things that I kind of had to figure out as I went. So a lot of it was written out of order. I think I wrote the first couple of chapters first, and then I wrote some stuff towards the end after that, and then there was a whole ordeal trying to work out the middle. But yeah, so I kind of knew what it was going to look like, but jumped around while filling in the details. Does that make sense?
Yes. And Amber has a question. She asked a little earlier.
Belzy is asking a question as well.
Amber would like to say hello and ask whether the genre is creative nonfiction. It sounds like there's several layers of the narrative where it's autobiographical but also engaging as a local legend.
Well, first of all, hey Amber. Amber is Amber Stitt?
Yes.
Amber is a member of Oxford Presbyterian Church, where I serve as the associate pastor. Very strong opinions about your question. No, I would say the book is creative fiction. I would not say it's creative nonfiction. The story is fiction. It's essentially a long short story or a short novella, however you want to parse that out. But is heavily inspired by local folklore. So the ghost that's in the story is it comes from a real ghost story from around South Carolina. And I tried to portray the ghost story as faithfully as I could in the story. But the characters are all fiction. The story is all made up. There's I certainly wouldn't say it's autobiographical. It's not about, I mean, there's certain, I mean, I think you're going to see little bits of Mark in various characters here and there, but
that's a perfect segue. I'm going to interrupt because Mel Mac wants to know, what character do you see yourself in the most?
In the story? The dead ghost. No. I don't know. I gotta be careful. I talk a little bit about. I probably a little bit of in all of them. I don't know that I don't know that any of the characters are intended to be based on me. But there certainly are moments in the story where I relate to each of them at different times. The main character is a young man named Liam. He's about 24. Liam actually was sort of loosely based on someone that I have known in my life. I don't want to say who, but he's also very heavily fictionalized. He's there's a little bit of inspiration from someone I used to know in South Carolina, but there's also a lot of Liam that is not that person. And then there's also times where Liam is a little bit me. There's a character in the story named Janet who is Aubrey's mom. She lives on dialysis, and Janet is kind of inspired by a lot of women that I have met in ministry and in church life. There's some ruling elders, for those of you who are Presbyterian, that have had a little bit of Janet in them. So yeah, some of the characters, I think most writers probably draw from their own emotional experience when writing a story. But I think they're all in their own ways pretty different from me, and they're also a little bit me too. All right, this one is for Sam. This is for Samantha. Kecho. Sam and I also went to Emerson together. She's a dear, dear, dear friend. Hi, Sam. I don't know if you're watching or not, but I'm going to sign your book. Whitney and I were talking a few minutes before we got started. I'm going to try to sign as many of these during the live stream as I can. We're gonna. I think we said we were going to try to do like an hour and a half at the most. We're not going to. But if we don't get through all of these during the stream, I will sign all of them after we're done. So don't worry about it. But anyway. There's also talking about the legend of the Gray Man. When I started working on the story, I spent probably about a year or so, maybe close to 6 months, trying to do as much research on the Gray Man as I possibly could, because it had been a long time since I'd really looked at the story and looked at the folktale. And so I spent about 6 months or so trying to, we were talking about books like, the ones that Nancy Ryan wrote. I spent like 6 months like reading every book like this about the Gray Man. I went and talked to people who said they'd seen him, found old news articles about the Gray Man. I watched archive footage of interviews with people who said they'd seen him. There's actually an episode of Unsolved Mysteries back in like 1994, 2, that was about the Gray Man. And one of the things that I learned that was really surprising is that there's a lot of different versions of the legend of the Gray Man. If you pick up any book about South Carolina ghosts in the Low Country, each of them is going to have a slightly different wrinkle on the legend, which I think is kind of cool. I think that's kind of how folklore works in a way. Like that's kind of how the tradition of folk stories. Every storyteller tells the story slightly differently. But I did the version of the legend that's in here is my favorite one. But there's also a line of dialogue that acknowledges that there's a lot of different old rumors and legends about the Gray Man. But that was really fun to get to learn about while putting this together. This one is for Melanie Mckaminski. Melanie and I grew up in Sumter together. I think we went to Wilson Hall together. Melanie, did we? I can't remember if Melanie went to Wilson Hall or Sumter High. I think we did. But she's a dear, dear friend. She's also a counselor in South Carolina. And so, hello.
Sumter High.
Sumter High. Okay. My memory is getting so terrible. I can never remember who went where, and I feel terrible about that. Like the narcissist that I am, I remember people that were in my class, and then after that, it gets a little fuzzy. So thank you for correcting me, Melanie. I appreciate that. For those of you who filled out the Google Doc, there was a little disclaimer at the end about getting hardcover copies. When we were getting ready to order the books, I got a note from the publisher saying, we can do paperbacks pretty quickly, but the hardcovers might take longer. So hopefully they'll get there in time for this live stream. So some of you may remember there was a little disclaimer at the end of the Google form that said, if you really want a hardcover copy, email me. I'm happy to do it, but it may or may not get there. And oh my God, like everybody, I didn't think anybody was gonna. I thought maybe one or two people.
Book lovers love hardback.
Apparently they do. So anyway, but the good news is, I think everybody who wanted a hardcover copy, we got them. So I don't think there's anybody. If you asked for a hardcover, we were able to get it done. So I was thrilled by that. So and yes, we do have. And some folks said no, it's fine, paperback's fine, and we've got those too. But I think we're in good shape.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Amber asked, after your discussion of folklore, have you ever read American Gods by Gaiman?
I've read a bit of it. I love Neil Gaiman. I read a bit of it in college. I think I got halfway through it, and I really loved it. I don't know why I didn't finish it. Probably because I was a college student, and I didn't finish half the books I started in college. Love Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's a wonderful author. They also did a really wonderful Netflix adaptation of American Gods, which I thought was really good. But yes, big fan of Neil Gaiman. He also was a guest writer on Doctor Who in later seasons. So yes.
And then Matt wants to know, is the Gray Man Presbyterian?
The Gray Man in the Presbyterian Church USA is what we call an active non-member. He's very, very active in Presbyterian liturgy, but he has not undergone confirmation class that I'm aware of. So I would say that his ecclesiological status is unconfirmed. I'll have to check with our stated clerk of the presbytery about that. Such an idiot. All right, this one is for Trisha Hansen. Trisha asked for a hardcover. Trisha and I also grew up in Sumter together. You guys are gonna hear that over and over again. I know there's gonna be a lot of like Sumter folks and Emerson College people, but Trisha and I. So Trisha. So I think Trisha, you went to Wilson Hall with me. We went to school together when we were little, and then I think you like moved away for a period of time and then came back like right at the start of high school, I think, because I have vivid memories of going to SAT training classes with Trisha and our friend Aaron, and they would just make fun of my driving mercilessly, as they should have, because my driving was ridiculous. So Trisha's a dear friend. We Marco Polo back and forth all the time. So this is for Trisha.
Speaking of South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
Candace would like to say congrats.
Hey, Candace.
And that, can you talk a bit about writing the setting of the story, making it feel like you're walking around in Polly's Island?
Ooh, thank you.
Very good segue.
Candace is also Candace is a friend and colleague of mine from the Muskingum Valley Presbytery. That was my previous call in ministry, and we were part of that presbytery together. And Candace is a really talented artist. She's a very talented puppet maker, and she's been doing some art pieces about the Gray Man. So she's wonderful. We love Candace. Yeah, so the story is set in Polly's Island, South Carolina, and one of the things that I really wanted to do was to try, hopefully, to make the book feel like Polly's Island, and the story weaves through different places in that region that are real. So when you read about characters on the Marsh Walk, for example, they're in like the real Marsh Walk that's actually there. There is the first scene of the story is set in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, 10 years ago, in an RV camp, and it doesn't say where this campground is, but if you know a little bit about Murrells Inlet, you probably know that the RV camp is probably Huntington State Park, which has an RV campground, and in the story, they sneak out of the campground and they go through this boardwalk that weaves through this overgrowth and goes out into the beach. And there's a picture of that boardwalk, that little sort of walkway right there at the front of the story. And so I actually went to that campground and walked that boardwalk where they sneak out and took this picture. And actually, most of the pictures in the book are mine. But so that when you see the photograph of that part of the story, that's a real place, and that's really what it looks like. And one of the things that was really fun about the story was to actually go to Polly's Island back in May of 2021 and visit all of the different locations that are in the story and take pictures of them. And the idea was that you could, if you wanted to, you could read the book. And the book does have some brief little geographical notes about where the different places are. So if you wanted to, if you were ever vacationing in Polly's, you could read Gray Man and then just, follow the directions in the book and go visit all of the different scenes in the story. So that was super fun. But yeah, there's All Saints Church is a real church in Polly's Island. Many of you know it. There's a few that church plays a role in the story. And there's a very famous grave in that cemetery that appears in the story. Some of you know what I'm talking about. The Hammock Shops Village is a really kind of famous, iconic little shopping area in Polly's Island. There's a fairly significant scene that takes place there, and they're actually going to be they're going to have the book for sale at the Hammock Shop, which is really kind of neat because they're in the book. So they can actually, like, if folks walk into their shop, they can open the book and say, "Hey, see, you were here." So that was really nice of them. They're very sweet. let's see, where else? Oh, there's a diner. There's one location in the book that's fiction. It's fictionalized. There's a character named Aubrey who works as a waitress at a diner called the Sunny Side Up. Sunny Side Up is not a real diner. It's just a fictional diner. I made it up. But at the start of that chapter, there's a few little notes about other places around the diner. And if you know a little bit about the Litchfield Polly's area, you could probably piece it. My sister figured this out because she read that. And if you kind of know that area a little bit, you can follow those directions and wind up at a real diner that's basically exactly like the one where Aubrey works. It's a chain, so I didn't want to use the name. I just wanted to fictionalize it. But my sister texted me when she read it, and she's like, "That diner, is that really the, Eggs Up Grill?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." So yeah, that was also really fun, was to sort of sit down with like maps of the island while writing the story and trying to piece together where everybody would be going. And okay, I've babbled about that enough. I should shut up and sign books.
Well, that's an important part of the story, is location.
That's true. That's very, very true. This is a book for Diane McKenzie. This is Miss McKenzie. Hi, Miss McKenzie. Miss McKenzie was my literature and English teacher in high school, and she's was a dear. She was one of my favorite teachers in high school, and she's very creative. She really instilled a love of like fiction and literature in a lot of us, and she's just a cool lady. So hi, Miss McKenzie. It's I hope you're doing well, and this is for. I'm going to make it out the way that you asked, for Diane McKenzie, aka Mrs. McKenzie. Okay. Very good. This is kind of a trial run for something that we're going to do next month. So for those of you who are in Sumter, there's going to be another book signing, an in-person book signing at the Sumter County Gallery of Art on Thursday, May 26th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. I'm allowed to talk about this now. I got the go ahead. I reached out. So I'm going to be, I say we, the royal we. I'm going to be there at the Sumter Art Gallery Thursday, May 26th from 5:30 to 7:30 as part of the opening reception for Mamma Mia, the musical at the Sumter Little Theater. So that's going to be super, super fun. I'll be there signing books. I'm going to do a reading from the book. And I think there's going to be some Q&A. So you get to hear me talk even more. Hooray. But that's going to be super, super fun. So if you're in the Sumter area on Thursday, May 26th, 5:30 to 7:30, if you want to pop by and say hello. I think we'll have some books available there. But if you already pre-ordered the book on Amazon or something, you can just bring it with you, and I don't care. So, yeah, a little free plug there. Did you see something?
My Aunt Kay is watching.
Oh, hi, Kay. Okay. I'm gonna sign this book. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. This is for Melinda Fillmore. Her son Tim shot me a note saying that he got a couple copies. Melinda is a dear friend of our family. Their whole family are dear friends of ours. Melinda knew me when I was very, very, very little, like toddler age. And so I don't have a lot of memories from being that young, but I do remember being in her house. I remember having a stuffed Puff the Magic Dragon. This was like 2 years ago. No, I remember having like a stuffed Puff the Magic Dragon and watching The Wind in the Willows in her living room. And her son Tim, you were probably a teenager at that time. They had, I think, like turtles in their backyard, and I have memories of him showing me turtles in the pond outside, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. and also their dad Kent would play the guitar, and I would call it the Kentar.
That's adorable.
So this is for Melinda. They're very, very special folks to our family. So
So when you're done with that,
yes.
Speaking of a reading, this is from Laura Stockbridge. Are you going to do a quick reading here?
I hadn't planned on it.
That's a very good question.
Probably not. I hadn't planned to do that. Maybe if there's time left over, if we let's keep an eye on the time. I want to try to get through as many of these as we can, because I want to.
And Amber followed up. She was wondering that too.
Oh, okay. I will. I had not planned to do that, but I'll see. I want to try to make sure I want to try to get through as many of these as we can, and make sure we thank as many people as possible. But yeah, if you guys want, if there's time left over and you're not totally bored out of your skulls watching this, maybe we could do that. I don't mind. As you all know, I have no problem listening to the sound of my own voice. The question is whether you guys do. So.
I said you don't have
to. This is for Brianna. Hi, Brianna. Brianna, you're going to get your book probably relatively quickly because you live like an hour away. Okie doke. There we go. I'm just gonna. Oh, are you gonna say something?
Yeah, your mom commented.
Oh, hi, Mom.
No, there's a comment.
Okay.
Melinda knew you long before you were a toddler. She was your English nanny for when you were 3 months old.
Oh, well, there you go. I was gonna say it can't
special
be.
Indeed.
I was gonna say it can't be long before I was a toddler because I didn't exist 2 months. Like you're only a toddler for what, like a couple of years?
Yes.
So,
that's
3
months. 3 months is a significant jump.
I'm being obnoxious. I know what Mom meant. I'm just being an ass. Yes, we love Melinda. Their whole family are very, very special to us, and so what?
Laura Stockbridge says time is relative, Mark.
Time doesn't exist. I'm going to sign a book. This is for Tara. Tara and I are friends from Emerson College. Tara and I did among other things, a radio show together on campus radio, and it was a lot of fun. But most of, as many of you who went to Emerson know, none of our like TV shows or radio shows, most of them were pretty bad. So but Tara and I had a lot of fun on the radio. I really enjoyed doing that show with Tara, and we would. It was just super fun. I don't know how entertaining I was on it, but and Tara has a very funny. Tara, you were also part of a really wonderful sketch comedy team called Chocolate Cake City, and they were really good. They were like legitimately really good. Like I don't know. There's a lot of like we've got a comedy team in Emerson, but they were really funny and they were really good writers. So this is for Tara. She's the best. Tara and I also watched a lot of real crime documentaries over the Zoom during the quarantine to try to not lose our skulls.
True crime was the answer to not lose your skulls.
Yeah, that was one of the ways we tried to stay sane during COVID, as I guess we're all still trying to do. So, Tara, this is for you. All right. Should I just keep going?
Yeah.
This is for Christian Dew Thompson. Hey, Christian. Christian and I went to Wilson Hall together, but I didn't know Christian very well when we were in school because she was a few years older than me. But we sort of became better friends later in adulthood, which that's kind of the neat thing about adulthood is that, you wind up like reconnecting with people that you didn't really know very well in high school. But then when you're in different seasons of life and you kind of have more in common, so that's kind of, Christian's a really wonderful friend. So this is for Christian. Lovely. I'm trying to keep these all organized. We've got a really efficient system set up here, so this doesn't just devolve. I've been signing a lot of hardcover. Should I do a couple of paperbacks?
Sure.
Okay. All right. We'll grab a couple here. This is for Kelly Shin. Kelly is another member of our presbytery. She's the associate pastor at Fairmont Presbyterian Church. I always get Fairmont and Fairmount Presbyterian Church confused. There's a Fairmount Presbyterian Church in Cleveland, I think it's in Shaker Heights, not where I lived before I moved here. Yeah, Kelly's a dear friend, and also shout out to our mutual friend Marcy Glass, who is another cool person.
There's a recommendation for you and Tara to watch Only Murders in the Building together now.
Ooh, I've heard that's the Steve Martin short.
Tara says she loves that show. So
I've heard that it's really great and really good and really funny. And who's the young woman who's the actress in that?
Selena Gomez?
Yes, Selena. Is that Selena Gomez, isn't that?
I think it's Selena Gomez.
All right. I can't.
I'll confirm in a second.
Okay. I can't see any. I can see that there are comments up there, but I can't read them.
We got confirmation. Thank you, Amber.
Yay! Thanks, Amber. Okay. Oh, this is for Moira. Moira and I also went to Emerson together. I think now Moira. I can't remember. Moira did not introduce me to Twin Peaks, but she had. I think her roommate and I used to watch VHS Twin Peaks together. No, not in like the dorm and in the common room and stuff like that. But I might be remembering that wrong. I don't know. But anyway, Moira wants me to make her book out to Wolfie, which is her nickname. And also, Moira and I have geeked out about retro video games quite a lot. Boy, if you're tuning in to hear more about the Gray Man, I'm like I'm just going off on all these.
Do a tour of the closet.
Yeah, well, we'll just, you know. Like people like wanting to hear about this local folklore, and I'm like, let me tell you about video games.
Well, if they're tuning in to watch you, they know.
That's true. That's true. This shouldn't be surprising to anybody. So, Moira, I made this out to Wolfie just like you asked. That's from Moira. Thank you. All right. Candace, we just heard from Candace a little while ago. Candace, this one's yours, so I'm gonna sign yours now. Yeah, Candace has done some art pieces about the Gray Man that are really, really beautiful, and they're really, really cool. It's I'm sorry, I'm trying to like talk and sign at the same. My brain isn't wired to multitask with this. So Candace, I'm just gonna go ahead and sign your book. So y'all just have to talk amongst yourselves.
Watch your scribble.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
For Candace. Okay. Are there any things about the book that I should be talking about that I've forgotten to mention? I'm sort of this is just sort of stream of consciousness rambling, so I apologize. I didn't really plan for this. I didn't really know what to say. So I don't. Is there anything else about the story that you think I should mention, or?
I think you might, after the book comes out, might have to actually do like a question, a Q&A about the story.
Well, yeah, that may be. There's some spoilers in there that.
There is another question.
Okay.
This is from Amber. Do you find dialogue or exposition more difficult?
Ooh, I like writing dialogue. I think dialogue is really fun. Like with dialogue, I think if you, most of the like real writers that I've heard that I really like and admire have said that being able to write dialogue really well, you have to be a really good listener and listen to people really well and kind of have an ear for different mannerisms. And I think that's true. I hope that my dialogue in this book doesn't suck, but I really enjoy it. I really love kind of watching the characters kind of sort of roam around and interact and kind of write that down. Exposition is a little bit, it's not hard, but it's not as much fun for me. I don't mind like writing about the character's thoughts or writing about like what's happening in the scene. But it's if so for example, if I'm writing about one of the places in Polly's Island that's real, I try to talk I give a little bit of like background on the place without the story devolving into like a tour pamphlet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of tricky. That's kind of tricky to do. One of the things I really didn't want to do, I'm gonna diss something just a minute. And I don't want to do this. I don't like to do this. But what I didn't want to do was what they did in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, particularly the film version. The book version is really wonderful, but the movie, that's a murder mystery that's set in Savannah, Georgia, and it did something very similar where the story visits real places and actually visits real people who live in Savannah, Georgia, and so there are characters in there who are like real folks. And but the movie version, I think the book version did a really beautiful job of sort of capturing the flavor of the place. But the movie version, I think, got a little corny at times. So it would do things like, I'm just going to make something up, like, oh yeah, we'll have to discuss that clue to the murder over lunch. Let's get lunch over at Joe's Ribs, the best you're likely to find this side of the Mason-Dixon, right here in Savannah, Georgia. And I just didn't want to do that kind of thing. That's not a real thing from Midnight Garden. I'm exaggerating, but they really, it just went a little over the top. And so I tried hard not to do that, but it's tricky. It's a little bit of a balancing act. So I think writing characters and story and dialogue is for me is much easier. Because you're just making up what they're thinking and what they're feeling. This is for Kelly Hodo. I keep wanting to call you by your maiden name, Kelly, which I grew up knowing her as Kelly Dwight. But Kelly and I were in church together. We were in youth group together for many, many years. She's a very sweet person. Okey-doke. That's for Kelly. I think we're about, what time is it?
2:52.
We're about halfway through. I think we're doing pretty well. This is for Jean Grant Dooley. Jean was one of the moms at Riverside Presbyterian Church, where I served as the interim youth director there for about a year. I had never heard of an interim youth director. So I was their youth ministry person, but like as a temp, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's I don't know how common that is in churches, but that was just that they were just in a temp time there. Jean's wonderful. She's very, very sweet. And her daughter, Mary Elizabeth, is a good friend of mine too from back in the day.
There she goes.
This is a blank one. So, yep. All right. So I'm going to do this one now. This is the one I was looking for earlier. This is for Amy Mckaminski, and so she's asking for one for her and one for her parents, and she's also asking for a sedative for Belzy, I think.
Yeah, I think so, maybe.
Right.
They want to know what burglars are trying to break in.
We're about to find out. Belzy's on top of it. She's going to find out for us.
That was a joke from the first time that Belzy went on.
Oh, good.
Nope. I know.
That's Amy, and then I'm going to do one for her parents really quick.
Laura says Arnie would like to say hello back to Belzy. She's he is very and vocally concerned about her, so she's setting off some other dogs.
Well, we don't have to worry about there being awkward silence. At least there's that.
She'll fill it in with some barks.
Yeah. These two go together. This is for Amy, and then the second one is for her parents. So those two go together. I think a couple of these I got to be careful as we get down to the second half because that's really good. So I know one or two of these are surprise presents. So I when we get to those, I'm gonna have to just move
Okay.
forward.
There might be something that came up earlier, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. This is for Margaret Haroni. Margaret and I also know each other from back when I was in seminary. Margaret is a hospital chaplain in Atlanta, Georgia, and she's one of the best chaplains that I know. She's a dear friend, and we still keep in touch regularly. And Margaret and I have a similar sense of humor, so we love getting to visit like that. So Margaret, hello. I hope you're well. And Margaret. I want to say one more thing about Margaret. Margaret is. I'm going to sign her book in a minute. She is. I call Margaret the funeral whisperer because she is the master at doing funerals and writing eulogies. If I'm doing a funeral at OPC or somewhere else, I will often ask Margaret if she would read my eulogy before I do it and give me any notes because she's really talented. And she does, as a chaplain, she does funerals regularly for folks that she doesn't even, that you don't know very well. And she's got a real gift for that. So she's a very dear friend and colleague. This is from Margaret.
I think one question that might come up for people after they read it is how your profession has impacted how you handled grief in the story. I know I had that question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, the story does talk about grief because it follows a main character who is grieving. It follows a main character who we learn has lost his mom very suddenly and unexpectedly. Her death in the story happened about 6 months prior to where the story picks up. So he's been grieving for about 6 months now. So he's not quite in the initial shock of it, but he's still very much in this sort of kind of like he's kind of moving into the numb phase. And he's a shy person in the first place. So like right off the bat, he's not really a social butterfly to begin with. But that the story starts in a very he's kind of adrift in his life. I think that the experience in ministry really did come into play while writing the story. There's one scene in particular. I don't want to give too much away. Someone was asking me how did being a pastor inform writing a ghost story. I don't know. All the ghost stuff, I just made it up. That's all. That's all fiction. But the pieces of the story, particularly about grief, did come from experiences. There's a chapter about halfway through the story where two characters have a conversation about grief. They're two very different characters and two different people that are in different seasons of grief, but they have a conversation about it. And that scene was taken almost word for word from a real life conversation that I listened in on as a pastor many years ago. And that scene is probably my favorite scene in the book because it's, to me, and you guys will, I'm being a little cryptic here because I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I think you'll know it when you get to it. That scene is, to me, that's what Gray Man is all about. So I'll say this. I don't think this is a spoiler. Like part of why I'm writing a story about grief and also a story about this ghost is I was talking earlier about doing the research on the Gray Man and looking at the story and really like thinking about it. One of the things that jumped out to me is the legend of the folktale is really about tragedy. It's a story about tragedy and loss, and it's about this young man back in 1822 who is on his way to be reunited with his fiancée. He's going to be married to this young woman, and he's riding on his horse along the beaches to be reunited with her after this journey overseas. And in his enthusiasm to see her again, he decides to take a shortcut through these marshes. Pawleys Island is like a barrier island on the coast of South Carolina. So there's this long stretch of marshes that sort of separated from the mainland. And so this young man tries to ride his horse across those marshes because he thinks they're shallow enough and that it's safe. And he gets stuck in the marshes and he drowns and he dies. And so his fiance gets word that this has happened, and she's just devastated. She's heartbroken by this. And for days and days, she just sort of wanders the beach, just sort of sad and alone. And then one night she has this dream where she hears his voice, or she sees a vision of him out on the beaches, warning her to leave the island because this hurricane is coming. And so her family leaves, and the hurricane of 1822, which was a real hurricane, there really was a big hurricane in 1822, slams into the island and just wipes everybody out. But when this young woman and her family come back, there's one house that's still standing, and it's their house. So the legend is that, the gray man, if you see the gray man, to leave. So when I look at this story and I think, well, this is a story that has a lot of loss in it. Is that you've got this young man who dies very suddenly and very tragically right before he's supposed to get married, which is horrible. And then on top of that, you've got this like a hurricane hits, which is it's like a 1-2 punch of like tragedy. And I think like one of the reasons why these stories endure in our communities for so long, why these folk tales continue to speak to people, is because underneath them are universal emotions like loss and grief. I mean, it's kind of interesting thinking about a story. If you think about it, like a story about a ghost that warns you that a storm is coming is kind of quaint when we live in an age where we all have like weather tracking supercomputers in our pockets. Like you can pull a weather app now and know when a hurricane is coming like a week. It's so the idea that there's this ghost that gives you that's kind of a quaint idea, but the idea of dealing with loss and tragedy and rebuilding, that's universal. That's been part of the human condition since since the very beginning, going back, in biblical stories like Job. That's maybe one of the oldest human themes. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to write this is I saw a lot of thematic parallels between what's in this old ghost story and what's in our lived reality even today. And so that was really why I wanted to write this story, was sort of comment on that a little bit. And yeah, if you're a pastor, or if you're part of a church community, or if you've been like a deacon or a Stephen minister, or even just somebody who knows somebody who's been through grief, you know what that's like. Many of us have walked through seasons of life like that, and I think they're universal. And we don't always talk about them very much. So yeah, that was a very, very long way of answering Amber's question. Of that, yeah, I think those experiences came into play quite a lot when writing about that stuff in the story. The spooky stuff, I just made it up. That was much easier. All right. So you said Laura Stockbridge was commenting earlier. She left a couple of comments earlier. Yeah. Laura, this is JJ. I've arrived at JJ's book. JJ's.
Did you see? There was a comment about what to write in it.
Oh, for JJ?
Yep.
Oh no, I didn't see that. It just says for JJ on the thing. What is?
She's the most ridiculous person I know.
Oh yes. Oh, that was what I said at his wedding. Okay, hold on. Wait. So I'm so sorry. So JJ, this is JJ Stockbridge. JJ is Laura's husband. JJ and I have been friends since we were like 3, going way back to like Miss Lucky's daycare in Sumter, South Carolina. And I was the best man at his wedding. And JJ and Laura's wedding was maybe the most fun wedding I've ever been to. It was so much fun. I mean, weddings are usually like they're often big, stressful. I mean, they're wonderful, but there's a lot of stress. Their wedding was just a blast from start to finish. And JJ and I have known each other for a long time, and he's a character if you know him. And he's one of my favorite people. But yeah, during my speech as his best man, I described him as the most ridiculous human being I've ever met.
Write that on the book.
And it's true. But I love you, JJ. But you know what? But JJ also. But the reason why I can say that about JJ is because JJ has known me long enough that he can say a few things back to me too. We've been friends long enough that I think we can say that about each other. Okay, so I'm gonna write this out the way he wants it.
He also fully admits that you are correct.
Well, I'm not really much of one to talk, though, in fairness.
Pot kettle.
Yes. Okay. So I wrote, for JJ, the most ridiculous human being I've ever met. I love you, buddy.
No, that's
all right. So JJ, that's for you. Good.
She said thank you, and I think we might have ruined the surprise. It's fine.
Oh, sorry. Well, wouldn't be the first moment of JJ's life I've ruined publicly. So. Sorry. Whoopsies. All right. Was I supposed to like keep that a secret?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, too late. Now you know.
That was me.
And knowing
Sin
is
meant it's fine.
And knowing is half the battle. Okay. This will be the first of several disasters before we're done here. All right. So this is for Rebecca Garrett. She's a friend of mine from Bentonville, Arkansas. Hi, Rebecca. Becca and I also have a very similar sense of humor. So I don't know if I can talk about that on the live stream, though.
No, probably not.
Okay. That's for Rebecca. I'm going to do a few more of these paperbacks. We're getting down towards the home stretch here. It's about 3:07. Why don't we go for about maybe 25 more minutes? I don't know if you guys are getting bored yet or not. I mean,
whether or not you're going to do a reading.
Yeah, we can. Well, why don't we see? We'll see if we can maybe try to finish up some of these, and then I'll read a little bit. And if we don't get through all of them, then whatever. So maybe at like 3:25, give me like a warning, and then I'll do a quick reading at the end, and we'll do that. Okay, so this is for Josh Jenkins, a friend of mine from Emerson. Josh and I are big Twin Peaks fans.
Oh, geez, I'm afraid.
And when we were at Emerson College together, David Lynch came and did a presentation at Emerson College, and there was a private reception for David Lynch. It was not open to students. It was by invitation only for like faculties and bigwigs. And Josh and I snuck into it because Josh knew somebody who was working the door, and they were able to get us in. And it was so obvious that we were not supposed to be there. Like everybody's wearing like suits, and they're like professors, and then like I was wearing this like animal shirt with like we so clearly had not been invited there. But Josh wants his book made out not only to him but also to Judy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And if you watch Twin Peaks, you know. Yeah. I'm gonna write something very special though.
Oh. Josh responded, yeah.
It's one of the greatest moments of my life.
Oh, and there's something else. Okay, congratulations on getting the story optioned by Alex Kurtzman.
Is he referring to the Netflix?
You're gonna have to ask my guy.
So I think this might be what Josh is referring to. Alex Kurtzman is a Hollywood producer who's produced a lot of movies that Josh and I don't like.
Oh.
But there is also a Netflix movie coming out called The Gray Man, which has nothing to do with this book that I've written. That's like a spy thriller with like Chris Hemsworth and Ryan Gosling. It's like this New York Times best-selling like spy thriller, and it just happens to be called The Gray Man. It's gonna be like this $100 million movie. The guys who directed Avengers Endgame are making it. So I did get a few messages like, "Oh my God, is your book being a movie?" I'm like, "No, that's nothing. That's very different." I don't know if Alex Kurtzman produced that or not, but I bet Josh knows.
Amber would like you to tell Hemsworth she says hi.
I will. He texts me all the time, and I try to be polite and I try to be nice, but I have things to do.
And Josh had no idea about that.
Alex Kurtzman, good grief. I wrote a very special note for Josh, and I think it's going to remind him of David Bowie and Twin Peaks. And Twin Peaks.
I'm going to read that
one. Yeah.
Josh,
that's a very, very special copy just for you. Okay. It's
That's a good one.
What else we like? We're like got an hour and a half to kill. Why not?
JJ is finally here and says hello, amigo.
Hey JJ, just ignore. Don't watch any of the earlier parts of the video until you get your book in the mail, and then maybe just trust me. But it's good to see you. And also JJ, I want to see you when I'm in Sumter next time. But he won't be there in May because I know they're going to be out of town. But like when we're in town for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, we need to get together and hang out because I love hanging out with JJ. Okay, this is for Ben here in our presbytery. Ben is one of the best moderators of a presbytery meeting I've ever seen, and that's high praise because presbytery meetings are they're not always known for being adrenaline rushing, but Ben is really, really fun. Amber, I know Amber's been chatting a bit in the Amber. This book is yours, and so I'm going to go ahead and sign it for you. Amber also teaches at Miami University, I think.
I believe she said art history professor.
Yes. Yes.
Said, yep, we win. Chrissy Westbury says you have a lot of stories about awkward celebrity encounters, my friend.
It's true. Most of them are from college.
Yeah.
Hi, Chrissy. Okay, Chrissy, I have to talk about. I mentioned Chrissy earlier in the live stream, but I need to mention her again. Chrissy is. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the inside of the book. At the very, very end of the book, this is not a spoiler. This is the acknowledgments. There is an acknowledgments page where I thank everybody. And Chrissy is, she gets top billing because, oh my God, Chrissy has been through this whole process of writing the story, she has listened to me talk about this book and ramble about this book and be anxious and ridiculous more than anybody. I don't know how many hours on Marco Polo we spent talking about the Gray Man and the characters. When I went down to Polly's Island doing research, taking all these pictures and jotting down notes, I would send her Marco Polos from places Chrissy deserves a medal for how endlessly patient, like a saint, she's been. So Chrissy, huge shout out to you. And hers is in here. Oh, this one's for Adina. But yeah, Chrissy, it's wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for being the best. This one is for our friend Adina. So you can probably just give this to her. Yeah. Okay. That's Adina's copy.
My mom wants to know if your plants are real.
They are not. Thank you for asking. This plant back here is fake, and the if you walk into my also the plant back over here is fake too. If you walk into my office at the church at Oxford Presbyterian Church, you'll walk past a plant. That plant is also fake, and only one person so far has verbally noticed it. I'm sure plenty of people have noticed it, just not said anything to be polite. But our preschool director, Sarah Lake, walked into my office to ask me something. And as she was walking out, she looked at the plant. And she was like, "Is that real?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "I didn't think so." You never have to water it, which, I'm lazy. So that's, this is for Tim Fillmore. We were talking about Melinda a little bit earlier, who knew me long before I was a toddler.
Apparently 3 months.
Yes. So this is for her son, Tim. This is Tim who had the turtles. And Tim and I keep in touch on Facebook. Okey-doke. It's Tim's. We got about, I'll do 10 more minutes. I'll sign some for about 10 more minutes, and then we'll do, I'll read a bit from the agreement. How's that sound? This one is a surprise. It says in the note that this is a surprise gift, so I won't say who this is for, but it's for someone.
Your book is a gift.
Well, it's something. Some gifts are better than others. And now this gift has my signature on it, so it's worth even less than it did when you bought it.
It'll be a white elephant next year.
Exactly. That's the downside. It makes reselling it on eBay even that much harder than it already would have been. Oh, goodness. This book that I'm signing now is for Betsy Turner. Betsy and I were in seminary together. I can't remember what class. Betsy, we were in a very specific class in seminary together, but I can't remember what it was. It might have been, I don't think it was church history. It might have been one of Anna Carter Florence's classes, or it might have been, I don't know. I don't remember. But Betsy's wonderful. Love Betsy. So, yes. This is for Katie. Hi, Katie. I say hi. I have no idea if she's watching or not, but she may be watching this later in the future. And if she is, I'm signing her book right now. All right. Katie was there at the very beginning. She was there in the audience with me at the Sumter Opera House. She at the very front row. She witnessed the car crash in slow motion. So, Katie, I fixed it. 20 years later. Oh, this is for I need two. This is for this one. This is for Kristen and for her mom Teresa. Kristen and I have also been friends for since we were 3 years old. Been friends for many years. It's a funny story. So Kristen and I were sort of childhood sweethearts when we were kids growing up, and we were in daycare together, and my mom has this memory. I don't remember this, but my mom remembers it. Kristen, I can't remember if we were at your grandparents' house. It might have been your grandparents' house. They had that swimming pool, I think, in the backyard. And my mom was sitting with Kristen's grandmother by the pool. And I was jumping off the diving board. And as I was jumping off the diving board, I was yelling, "Leonardo!" and "Michelangelo!" and just being silly. And Kristen's grandmother turned to my mom and said, "Margaret, I am just so impressed. You've just done an amazing job raising your son." And mom was like, "What?" She's like, "I'm amazed that at this young age, he's that familiar with these famous Renaissance artists." And she was like, "Well, but no, thank you, but he's yelling out names of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles."
Were named after Renaissance painters.
They were. But I love that. I love that story. So I'm going to do two. This is for Kristen and for her mom, Teresa. I'm going to sign two of these really quick. Kristen has also been a very, very nice supporter of the Gray Man Project. So thank you. And I'll do Teresa's. Oh, these two got to go together.
Ooh, okay. Roger Davies says, "Are there any other books in your future?"
Probably not. I don't have any plans for one. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, but there could, but I mean, I feel like this book, the Gray Man book, leaves itself open to there could be more stories about other ghosts in the future if I wanted to do that. I don't know. I didn't really do this because I wanted to become like, I'm trying to become an author. I've always wanted to do a story about the Gray Man, like for forever and ever and ever. That's just been something that's been on my bucket list for a long time. So I just wanted to do the book just to do it. This is not meant to be like my attempt to get into like the writing world or the publishing world or anything like that. There are a lot of South Carolina authors who are in that world who are very. I was talking about Carla Damron a little bit earlier, but this was just something I wanted to do. I've always wanted to do a piece of fiction about the Gray Man for a long, long time. So that's why I did it. I did it just to do it. Would I do like another one, like a sequel or something? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I suppose if this one does really, really well, then I'd be open to it. But it probably won't be for a while. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I kind of like the way that Gray Man ends. I'm not going to give away how it ends, but I really kind of like the way that it ends. And so there's a part of me that wants to just leave it there. And there's also, I mean, and I'm really proud of the book. I really like this story. And there's a part of me that thinks I should just quit while I didn't screw it up. So I should just quit while I'm ahead. But I don't know. I mean, I could imagine where these characters might be later on, and it maybe one day I will. I don't know. We'll see. I don't have any plans to do that though. I'm not. Don't look for it anytime soon.
I'm gonna give you a 3-minute warning.
Oh, yes.
And then also there's another question.
Okay, what's the question?
Candace McMath says, "Do you view Gray Man as a modern parable?"
Ooh, like the folktale or the book?
That's a good question. I would say maybe the folktale in general. That would be my guess, but she did not specify. There she goes. Either is what she said.
Either. This is for Rachel Runnels, by the way. I think most folk tales are kind of modern parables. So Candace and I both come from the ministry world. So we come from the church world. So we think about parables quite a bit. I mean, parables are really stories that have their origins in oral storytelling, and local folk legends and local folklore, like the Gray Man and Alice Flagg and things like that, also have their origins in oral storytelling. They're stories that sort of speak to the identity of the community that they originate from. There's sort of parables can hold our fears, our hopes, the wisdom from our predecessors, that lessons that we hope that we learn. So I think there's a lot of similarities between folklore and parables. Do I consider my book to be a parable? I don't know. I just hope it's a good story. I hope you guys like it, and I hope you don't think it sucks. I don't know. I mean, it's a story that has my voice in it, I think, and I think that it has a lot of my heart and thoughts, and there's a lot of that in the book. So take that for what that's worth. But I don't know. I just hope it's a good story, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And anything after that is gravy, as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
One more minute.
Huh?
1 more minute.
All right, I'm gonna sign one more, and then I'll. We've got a couple more left. If we don't get to all these during the live, I can just sign these really quickly later. And so I'll do one more, and then I'll read a little bit. How's that sound? Who should be which one should be the last? Do you want to pick a book, any book? Just do a random lottery.
Yeah, do a random lottery.
May the odds be ever in your favor. If you haven't gotten a shout out yet, this will be This will be.
Laura Marker says sign them all.
Don't leave until you're done. Oh, this is for, and the last one goes to Rebecca Montague, Sandifer. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I've butchered. Her maiden name is Montague. We were in school together, and I knew her as Rebecca Montague, and I'm so sorry if I've butchered your married name. So Rebecca, you get the last book on the live stream.
Your mom would also like to acknowledge that Bella's on camera.
Yes, she is. Bella loves to be on camera. I would argue that the reason why folks have tuned in as long as they have is probably because of the chance that they might see Bella on.
Well, they definitely heard her.
Yeah, they definitely heard her several times. Okay. So thank you guys. Thank you for before I read a little bit of it, I want to just one more time. First of all, thank you guys for letting me do this. Thanks for letting me clog up your Facebook feed with this self-indulgent nonsense. And thank you all for buying a copy of the book. Like I said, these are advanced copies. The book doesn't come out for another month. But this is just a very limited run of advanced copies just for you guys, because you guys have been so nice and so thoughtful and supportive. And thank you all for putting up with my constant posting about this. I always feel conflicted about that. I know it's so self-indulgent to do that, but but also like my publisher says, you got to promote it. So I don't know. I thank you all for putting up with that, and I hope it hasn't been too obnoxious. If you want to hang out in person, for those of you who are in the Sumter area, I'll be at the Sumter County Gallery of Art on Thursday, May 26th. I'll be posting about that too on Facebook from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. That's going to be part of the opening reception for Mamma Mia, the musical, at the Sumter Little Theater. So you can come listen to me ramble about this stuff a second time, and I'll scribble on your book if I haven't already. And then go see Mamma Mia. So that'll be fun. The Mamma Mia is a musical that's set at the beach. Gray Man is a grief-ridden ghost story that's also set at the beach. So they go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to read a little bit since you guys asked. I didn't plan to do this, but
we're going to do one final shout out from your buddy JJ. He would like to say hello to your mom.
There you go. This is why JJ, this is why I call him the most ridiculous human being I've ever met at his wedding. Hi, JJ, and hi, Mom, and, I'm glad you got to say hi to each other. Okay. All right, so I'm going to read, this is a scene that I think this is a scene that I'm going to read at the art gallery, too, in May. We were talking a little bit earlier about, there's a character in the book named Liam, who's, he's sort of, the book follows his journey through grief. And we first meet Liam about 6 months after his mom has died. And this scene where we first meet him was the very first scene that I wrote of Gray Man. And for a long time, I wanted it to be the very first scene of the book because I really like the way that it opens. There's actually a short prologue that it takes place right before this scene in the final version. But I really like this as an introduction to Liam. I think it gives a really nice sort of flavor to who he is. And also why his story interweaves with this Gray Man business. And as we meet him, he is watching somebody that he thinks is very curious. So we'll read a little bit about Liam. Liam saw the storyteller at church again that morning. He sometimes liked to attend the worship services at All Saints Church, a historic church on Pawleys Island just east of the Waccamaw River. The original building dated back to the 19th century, but had burned down in 1915. It was rebuilt over the following 2 years. It was a one-story rectangular brick church with Greek-style columns along the front and an old cemetery outside. Liam wasn't quite sure why he enjoyed being there. He certainly didn't consider himself particularly devout, but he did enjoy feeling close to history. All Saints was an old church. He figured the social contact probably did him good, too, even if he kept something of a distance. Not quite 25 years old, Liam had figured out that folks usually noticed when someone his age walked in on a Sunday morning. so he usually sat in the back pew and tried to keep a low profile. He would go to the earlier, more traditional service in the morning and then grab a cup of coffee afterward. He was a morning person, and he enjoyed having a ritual to greet the day. Liam liked listening to the sermons, not because he was particularly religious, he wasn't, but he thought they were interesting. This particular Sunday morning, however, Liam was planning his escape. The storyteller sat a few pews closer to the middle. He wasn't wearing plaid, as Liam had predicted, perhaps cynically, but he did have on a sort of a modest tweed coat. It looked good on him. He couldn't have been much older than Liam. What is he, 26, 27? Liam thought. He couldn't have been younger than him. Or is he? Maybe he's still in college. It's hard to tell. Liam kept trying to size the guy out from a distance during the sermon. He couldn't stop looking at his mustache. He had grown what looked like a real, period-accurate mustache from right out of the 1800s. He looks like such a hipster, Liam thought. That's an awful lot of commitment to a job as a storyteller. He probably makes homebrewed beer with his buddies on the weekends. Liam felt a little ashamed of his secretly judgmental thoughts. Why had he suddenly felt the need to stereotype this guy? He was probably nice enough. He was quiet, friendly, and generally unassuming. Why did Liam feel so oddly self-conscious around him? For some reason, he imagined that this guy could somehow see right through him and dissect his every insecurity at a glance. Liam wasn't really sure why he felt that way. He supposed he probably experienced that feeling around most people deep down. The congregation greeted each other after the service, and Liam took his opportunity to escape during the light chatter. The storyteller seemed more comfortable with that sort of thing than he did. He didn't draw attention to himself. He was quiet, but friendly, grounded. Liam was about to cross the threshold of the door when an older woman grabbed him by the shoulder. He had gotten distracted watching the storyteller and had missed his chance to get out while the getting was good. He awkwardly indulged some pleasantries and then escaped to the parking lot. Liam first remembered seeing the storyteller at the Waccamaw Library where he worked. He sat in his usual perch at the crescent-shaped desk near the children's area. He'd been staring at screens all morning and was well past ready to go home. The storyteller had been brought in to do a sort of a kid's corner that morning. The last guy who had come to the library to do this sort of thing had been a little more over the top, like a failed drama student trying to rekindle his glory days on stage. This storyteller had been different. He was younger and quieter. He didn't try so hard. This was the second group of the day, so Liam had seen this guy's shtick already. This group was polite, but smaller than the previous one. It was made up mostly of parents and grandparents who had dragged their kids there. Even with the smaller crowd, the storyteller appeared natural and comfortable around kids. Liam couldn't stop staring at his mustache. It was just so majestic. The storyteller gathered the circle of kids onto the rug at the center of the room. "Have you ever heard the story," he began, "of Crab Boy's ghost?" The kids just stared back at him with vacant expressions. "It's a ghost story from the marshes of Polly's Island." A young boy wearing a bright blue seersucker outfit raised his hand. The storyteller grinned and nodded to him. "Yes, sir," he said. "What are marshes?" the boy asked him. "Quicksand," the storyteller answered. "Deep, thick mud pushed into the water by rain. Some folks call it pluff mud. When you look out over the marshes on Polly's Island, you can see long grass growing out of it. It almost looks like you could walk across it, but pluff mud is dangerous. Once you get stuck in it, it's almost impossible to get out. Then you can start to sink." A little girl in the crowd wearing pigtails raised her hand next. "Has anybody ever gotten out?" she asked. The storyteller stroked his mustache. "You have to be very still," he said. "If you relax your entire body and let yourself breathe, then maybe you can float and swim out another way." She raised her hand a second time. "My mama said the marshes out there on the island are haunted," she said. "She says the gray man lives out there." "Who's the gray man?" the boy in the seersucker suit asked. The storyteller smiled. "Ah, the gray man," he said. "He's a very famous ghost. He appears out on the sand dunes or sometimes near the water when hurricanes are close. Liam perked up a little. None of this had been in his routine with the first group. The storyteller appeared to be going off script. When the gray man appears out on the beach, he said, that means that a storm is coming, and you'd better get as far away as possible. Is he a friendly ghost? She asked. Yes, the storyteller replied. He's not the kind of ghost who would haunt your house or try to take something that once belonged to him or frighten you away. When the gray man appears, it's because he wants to help people. A lanky boy with scraggly brown hair raised his hand. I thought you said he lived out on the marshes, he asked. Who is he? Was he a person? The storyteller shook his head. No one knows for sure, he said. Some say that he was a young rice planter who fell in love long ago with a beautiful young woman who lived in a house by the ocean. What happened? The brown-haired boy asked. One day, the storyteller said, he came riding home on his horse along the beaches after a long journey overseas. They were supposed to be married, and he was very excited to see the woman that he loved. The storyteller paused, and his expression turned grave. So he took a shortcut through the marshes, he said. Why? The boy asked. He thought the Pluff Mud looked safe, the storyteller said. He thought it was shallow enough to ride across. But he was wrong. His horse got stuck in the quicksand, and they started to sink. The girl with the pigtails raised her hand again. You said that if you relax, you can float and swim out of the mud. Is that what happened to him? She asked. No, the storyteller replied. He struggled and cried out with all of his might. That's the thing about Pluff Mud. The harder you struggle, the quicker you sink. The young man and his horse sank deep beneath the marshes, and they died out there. The kids got really quiet. The next day, he continued, the young woman heard what had happened, and she was heartbroken. For days and weeks, she walked along the beach, sad and alone. One night, she had a dream that she was walking along the beach, and she saw a shadowy figure out on the sand dunes. Was it his ghost? The girl with the pigtails asked. Yes, the storyteller replied. She heard his voice somewhere out on the wind, warning her that a storm was coming and that she and her family needed to leave. Then he faded away like a mist or a shadow. The next morning, she woke up and told her family about the dream. They thought she was crazy. They believed she was overcome by a broken heart, but the young woman insisted that they pack their bags and leave everything behind. So they did. 2 days later, the great hurricane of 1822 swept the island. When the family returned, all of the homes along the beaches had been torn apart by the horrible storm. All of their homes, except one. One house was still standing. Was it their house? The little girl asked. Yes, he said. Their house had been spared. Everything exactly as they left it. Even their dresses were still hanging on the clothesline outside. They weren't even wet. Legend says that the gray man watched over their home and protected them. And if you ever see him, you should heed his warning. He'll protect your home too. The girl's hand flew in the air again. What about the lady? She asked. What happened to her? The storyteller smiled. I don't know, he said. Some say that their ghosts are still out there somewhere, and that one day they will find a way back to each other. Liam glanced at his watch. Time to wrap up soon, he thought. He had been wanting to try the new pale ale over at the tavern later that evening. The storyteller told 3 ghost stories to the group. The Gray Man of Polly's Island, Alice Flagg of the Hermitage, and the Headless Sentinel of Wedgefield Plantation. An older boy with dirty blonde hair raised his hand. The Headless Horseman is from Sleepy Hollow, he said, not South Carolina. The storyteller smiled. Ah, but you see, a good story can travel from place to place, he said. It can be told and retold by many different people in many different ways. That's what makes it a good story. After he finished, some of the grandparents stayed behind to chat with the storyteller. My daddy used to say that the real Gray Man was one of the Westons who owned the old Pelican Inn. one of them said. There are a lot of old rumors, the storyteller said. A lot of old legends. Liam packed up his things. He stuffed his laptop into his backpack and started to make his way toward the door when he suddenly overheard something. The girl with the pigtails had whispered something in her brother's ear. They love each other, she said. That means they'll live forever. She glanced up at Liam as she said this, with kind of a strange look in her eye. Liam gave her a look back and walked out the door.
Belzy has a thought.
Okay, guys. So it's boy, we've been on here for what, like almost 2 hours now. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I'll finish signing these, and these will go out in the mail on Monday. Belzy also says hi. Again, if you want a tracking number, just let me know. You can shoot me a message on Facebook or email or whatever, and I can get it to you. It'll probably take about 4 or 5 business days for them to come in the mail. But thank you guys so much. And if you're in Sumter, I hope I'll get to see you on May 26th at the Sumter Art Gallery. And you should also go see Mamma Mia. So anyway, thank you guys. This has been super, super fun. And Whitney, thanks so much for helping out and keeping all the books organized. Whitney doesn't want to be on camera, but she says hello. So anyway, thanks guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all soon.